Talk Talk is this interesting thing because Talk Talk started out as a synth pop band, you know, and if you go back to their first It's My Life, for instance, the one that you know, no doubt had a massive hit with the single, or sorry, was it It's My, no, Life's, yeah, It's My Life. And like that record is a synth record, you know, very not like Depeche Mode, early Depeche Mode, but pretty poppy, but has its dark moments and its dark layers. And you can see that it was like there's this evolution that goes on within the career of that band where it starts off very synthy, very sort of new wave or post new romantic, or however you want to label that, in the 80s. And it kind of turns into this thing where it's almost like an art rock record, where if you listen to the two albums after the one that I'm in love with, uh, which are the Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock, quite literally everything Radiohead does will make sense to you because they had to have been influenced by it. It's just, there's no way that you can listen to those records and not see the parallel between them. So it's just, it's a big, massive evolution. So that band's a challenging band to listen to, especially if you're going to fall in love with them.
So let's dive right into that Talk Talk album then, seeing
Yeah, okay.
as we've gotten started with it. So the album is The Color of Spring. This comes out in 1986. So I'm 1 year old when that comes out, just to so you know why I wasn't familiar with it when it was first released. I had to dive into it again here. When was the first time that you heard this album? Do you remember discovering it? Is it with the singles on the radio at the time? How does this come to you?
Well, I was looking for it because they were on my radar. I was a big fan of the record before that. And I think Much Music was all the rage back then. You know, everybody was getting their music from Much Music and MTV and so on and so forth. And so if that came out in 86, that would have made me 19 years old. So I'm living in Toronto. Yeah, I'm living in Toronto at this point. And I think I probably heard Life's What You Make It, the single, on, and saw the video for it, which is a really cool video. It's basically the singer and a piano and lots of bugs in the forest. Very different for the time. It kind of stood out. It was very different, but the song itself to me is like nothing else that was on the radio at that time. There's no bass in the song. It's all just the bottom end of the piano, and it's this kind of part that just kind of keeps going over and over, and the groove is amazing on the song, and there's just so much depth to it, and the emotional content behind the way he's singing it, but also what he's singing, and the lyrical content. And I just remember thinking, yeah, I was waiting for this, and this is better than I had hoped. So immediately that meant, let's go down to the record store and pick up the CD of it.
So you mentioned the one single, Life's What You Make It. That's the one that jumped out at you. There was 3 other singles. So Living in Another World, Give It Up, and I Don't Believe in You. The recording is super clean. That's what stood out to me, is it's just very clean, and every instrument has its own space, and it's like luscious. That's what stood out to me. It wasn't like a grungy record or like a dirty or an indie. It was just super polished, but not in, you know, the pop Justin Bieber sense of polish. It's the recording. It just sounded masterfully recorded to me.
It's, for me, one of the high points of pop music production in terms of just the way it was produced, the instruments that were chosen, because there's some really interesting, like there's harmonica on this thing, and there's you know, real strings and mellotron and dobro guitar, but acoustic guitar and electric guitars that don't sound like electric guitars. They sound more like, you know, an elephant getting stuck in a tar pit or something. And the drums, and this combination of percussion and programmed drums and B3 organ, and just all of these layers and all of these textures, and it's like this, you can hear this incredible conversation that's happening musically between all the musicians that are happening on any given song. And there's points where things are just ridiculously loud, but they only happen like for a split second, and then they go away, for instance. I Don't Believe in You is a really good example of that, where you have like these, you know, like just acoustic bass, where it's just like there's growls that come out of nowhere, and you're like, what the hell? And they're just too loud, and then they go away. And
that's actually my favorite song on the album.
I Don't Believe in You.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. That song is absolutely insane. just the way it starts off with the harp of the piano and then the guitar part and then the harp of the piano and the guitar part and then the band kicks in and the groove. It's just like, are you kidding me? What the hell is going on? Amazing. But you're right. It's like everything has a friend of mine describes it like not that record, but he describes like good mixes like this, where he says, everything has, it's almost like there's a home built around it. So you can hear it specifically and all these little things that come in and out. But also, when you go back and I was in sort of preparation for this, I went back and I looked at it and I just want to go through the lyrics again to make sure what was going on. Because when I bought the lyrics are in his handwriting, and his handwriting, you can barely read it. It's like, what the hell is this guy saying? And of course he sings in a way that's it's almost like Tom York, where there's points where you're just like, what, that's a great tone. I have no idea what you just said though. Or at least for me anyway. And one of the beautiful things about Spotify was being able to go and take a look at the lyrics and see what the actual lyrics for the song are. And I'm like, oh wow, there was a resonance there that was happening that I thought was going on, and it turns out that is actually what he's saying. And wow, this is dark. This is really dark.
Yeah, you mentioned to me that this is a really dark album, and we're going to jump into the Peter Gabriel album. You said that one was dark as well. So is it the lyrics for you that make this album a very dark album, the lyrical content?
I think when I listen to it overall at first, Happiness is Easy, right? It's the first song on the record. It starts off with the drum beat that goes on for too long almost before the band actually kicks in. And then that's a perfect example of just song. The bedrock is just sounds coming in and out. And when it goes into the chorus and you hear the little kid singing, because he just lays out and his little kid singing what happens at the chorus, because he says happiness is easy, and then the answer lines of these little kids, and you go and you read about what they're saying, and they're basically, I don't know if they're reading like catechism or catechism or it's definitely based on religion, but the whole comment of the song is based on what you will do that's not basically moral or whatever on the basis of religion. So there's this you have these really sweet kids' voices, and yet the message is like, oh God. And then you go into I Don't Believe in You, and then Life's What You Make It. And then April 5th, which to me is like kind of hopeful in the sense that it's like, oh, here comes spring. But he just puts it in a way that you're like, what? This is so cool. And the way he sings on the outro of that song is a real precursor to like Laughing Stock and Spirit of Eden and where the band was going, kind of thing. So there's never really a moment where I feel it's happy, because even when it is happy, there's stuff going on behind it's not.
The kids singing the darker lyrics, that's an equivalent in movies. Like the juxtaposition is like Jaws, where you have a scene of like a happy kid swimming, and then the music, the Jaws music, where something bad's about to happen. That's like the equivalent of it,
Yeah, exactly. Right. And something similar to, I remember like it gave me goosebumps the first time I heard it, but like, and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 did the same thing too, when the chorus, when the English choir comes in, the kids, and you're like, oh my God, God, the Stones did it. Everybody, it's been done. It's an effective thing. But in that track, I thought, God, that's just so cool. And the groove,
they'll get you.
Yeah. And the groove of it is just like, give me a break, man. So good.
What's funny that you mentioned Pink Floyd, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 is this is the second episode of my 5 favorite albums. The first one I had Rich Bedeau of Finger Eleven, Saint Asonia, and he had The Wall in there. So it's kind of funny. Through the first 2 episodes, we're mentioning Pink Floyd here for all-time greats.
Well, yeah, it's hard to deny that stuff. For me, I like that record. I don't love that record though, but I like that record. But there's moments in it where it's just like, if you don't get goosebumps, you're dead inside.
It's even if you don't love the record, you can't deny that there's genius involved in at least some parts of that, between the vision or the actual follow through of the concept, or the songs themselves, or the actual playing, like the guitar solo in Comfortably Numb, or
right. Like, who writes a solo like that? Who has enough guts to write a solo like that or play it, where it's like, I'm just going to play real slow and melodic, and I'll be damned. This is what I want to do. I'm always, as I say, I'm like, yeah, I like that record. I don't love that record. I just watched a documentary. Well, it was a concert thing of Roger Waters, And I've always been kind of like not really. I never really dug right in on Pink Floyd, but I remember watching this thinking, I'm getting goosebumps. This guy's killing me. This is amazing. Yes, I like this. So that's one of those. It's kind of like quinoa. I always go, no, I don't like quinoa, and then I have it, and I go, why don't I like quinoa? I like quinoa.
Yeah, you need to put aside your you have this, there's something in you that is rejecting Pink Floyd for some reason. Do you prefer some of
And
their other all-time great albums? Like, do you like Dark Side of the Moon better than The Wall, or Wish You Were Here better than The Wall, or just as a whole, Pink Floyd is just, they're just a 7 out of 10 for you?
yeah, no, let's give him a 7.5
Okay.
with David Gilmour every now and then hitting the 9.
Okay.
Because I'm a guitar player.
Okay. You're there's the two camps. There's the Roger Waters camp, there's the David Gilmour camp. So you're more in the David Gilmour camp.
Well, I'm definitely more in the Roger Waters lyrics camp. That's for sure. That guy's, forget it. No, it's amazing stuff, man. It's funny, It's like, I don't know how you rank something like that. It's like it's like an incredible work of art. Sometimes it's a little overdone for me, but no, I think Dark Side of the Moon, but Dark Side of the Moon probably because, I was in a band when we were like, I was 18 years old or something. No, it was younger than 17 years old. And we finished rehearsal, and I think somebody rolled a joint and we smoked it. And then they put on Dark Side of the Moon. And I went, oh my God, this is crazy.
That's how everyone gets into Pink Floyd.
Yeah. There's that sort of like, that sort of helping addition of the substance of marijuana cigarette opened my eyes to the prism
of marijuana. We were talking about the song Happiness is Easy, the first song on the Talk Talk album. What stood out to me on that song is the guitars. So there's acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
One of them is strumming, and it's just super pleasant. It's just a very pleasant sounding. It's like a round sound, and these are funny ways of describing.
No, it makes total sense.
And then there's very tasty, intricate guitar work that's more lead, and it sounds more like a nylon string guitar, or a classical guitar. So there's two completely different guitar sounds going on that I find stand out in that song.
Well, because they come into the lead parts come in spots where and they come in at times when the beat turns around too. So they'll play like a lick, and then the beat will turn around underneath it. And it's just it's almost jarring, but it's jarring with a really beautiful sound. So arrangement wise, it's kind of like the arrangement breaks up in a strange way, but it's pleasing to listen to at the same time. And yet, you got this dark sort of thing going on in the piano underneath it. And oh God, I just love it. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
You mentioned harmonica a few minutes ago. So I have a note. So Living in Another World, the harmonica was badass. So that's what I remember standing out.
Badass. One of these days I want to lift that harmonica part and try and play it on the guitar, which I won't be able to do. But oh man, that part is so badass. And I can't remember the name of the guy that played it, but because this is like, Steve Winwood's on that record. I believe John Lord from Deep Purple's on that record, if I'm not mistaken. Robbie McIntosh is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. And David Rhodes is Peter Gabriel's guitar player. Guitar players on that record. And along with the three guys from Talk Talk, who the bass player in Talk Talk is insane. Yeah, it's just such an incredible lineup, but I can't remember who the harmonica player. But yeah, Living in Another World, that harmonica solo is off the chart.
Let me know if my following statement is ridiculous. Okay. So while I'm listening to Talk Talk, I'm hearing vocally with the singer, I'm hearing similarities to the singer in Roxy Music. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you kidding? Also love that band.
I didn't know if I was crazy because I don't know Talk Talk that well, and I don't know Roxy Music that well. Yeah. So I didn't know if it's like a rookie mistake, me saying that.
God, no. That's actually something that I never thought of. And the minute you said it, I went, yeah, of course. Duh.
Just in the vocal delivery and the timbre of the voice. And
well, also as this is how astute an observation that is. one of the comments about Talk when they first started out is that they came out as part of this new romantic sort of period, which a lot of people feel that Roxy Music was the beginning of all of that. So if you go listen to Country Life or something like this, and I just saw Roxy Music. Was it September? I want to say September or October. Andy called me and said, "I've got tickets. Let's go." So we went, and it was unbelievably smooth and just great to hear some of those songs played back live. Avalon's one of my favorite records too, but yeah, I think that's a great comment. Makes absolute sense.
All right, I'm not crazy.
Voice, kind of quirky voice, but kind of smooth at the same time.
Yeah, just like a beautiful, smooth delivery when they sing.
Yeah.
So I have one final thing about the Talk album. So the album was included in the book, 1,001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. So that's kind of a famous book. And if you get included in that, there's 1,001 albums. It's like if aliens came down and they had to consume 1,001 albums to get the best of the human race musically, that's the list. So I thought that was pretty cool that it was included in that.
Okay, that's surprising. Were any of their other records, the other two, afterwards? Because for a lot of people, for a lot of people who are really into this band, the record that I chose is not the record they would choose. They would choose like Spirit of Eden, or they would choose Laughing Stock, because they're kind of, but this was like the perfect marriage to me of songs and the direction they were going and the direction they came from. And so that's cool that it was listed in that. That's amazing.